So anyway, on that note, I will kick this off. So if you don't know what Cheezburger is, can we get the slides on? Or do I get the slides on? I don't think I do.
Ceiling Kitty has them.
Okay, there we go. So I'm going to talk to you about good design or bad design, and why does it matter? So we're going to talk about, a slight technical difficulties here. All right.
What's going on, Fail Blog?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not doing it. I'm not touching anything right now. All right, here we go. So, what is Cheezburger? If you don't know our site, it's a network of humor websites that we've created or bought. The very first one I bought in 2007, primarily because I hated my job, not because I knew what I was doing. We are a network of sites. You may have heard of us from sites like Cheezburger, Fail Blog, Meme Base, Very Meme, The Daily What. We basically contribute to the waste of productivity in corporate worlds for hundreds of millions of minutes every single day. So, there is a bigger mission though than just wasting people's time. We believe in making people laugh for 5 minutes a day. And so that's actually a little pictogram of World Happy 5 minutes a day. And we actually believe in this so much that we have decided to devote all of our time and energy to making more people laugh around the world than anybody else. And so we do things like this. And our users upload the content. They may have gotten to start somewhere else. They may have built it on our sites using our tools. Oh, there are cats. Particularly that. And of course, you all know how to save lives on the internet. You press the like button. And if your child doesn't get enough likes, there you go. This is called slacktivism, I believe. Yes. So, what do we know about good design? What do we care about good design? We have actually one of the worst looking websites on the planet. And it turns out that there's a commonality among many of us that this is not like a very uncommon thing. You don't need great design to have a very successful business. But yet you will actually talk to a lot of people today who really emphasize why we should have great design. Because we all want things like this. That's a beautiful looking car. But what's really funny about great looking cars is that they're not the best seller. This car, which looks like a box with a bunch of red paint on it, is the best selling car in North America. Not the Ferrari, not the beautifully designed car, but this, a utility that actually works. And so the question that I want to ask you guys is design your strategic advantage? Are you designing because you want to make things look good? Or are you designing because it serves a value in your business? So this is Craigslist. Craigslist is a bunch of blue links. And I can talk more about Craigslist later because there is a value to design. But often we don't understand the right value when it comes to design. Because if you think that design is a strategic value, then I'll ask you again, are you sure about that? Are you sure? Are you really fucking sure? I don't know if you noticed that, but that's Facebook. The world's most powerful social media network. Looked a lot like Craigslist, actually. So, I'm not rallying against good design. There's always a place for good design. But what we often do is we confuse good design with love. We fall in love with the things that we create. We fall in love with the idea that we have about our business, just as we fall in love with the idea that we have for our company. And the same pitfalls apply in design as they do to your business model. If your design doesn't work, or if your design that isn't serving your customers right, you have to pivot your design. And if you look at Facebook in 2006, did you notice that Facebook had a banner ad in 2006? Like, that almost seems sacrilegious, right? Well, that's gone now, because between 2006 and today, they have had hundreds of mini user revolts because they kept on changing their design, right? And if you look at Facebook, they're constantly releasing things to piss you off. Yet there's a billion of you on there. It doesn't seem to make sense. Every time you change the design of your business, your user will be pissed off because you're changing their habits. Every time you change your design, you will actually be making more friction occur in your business. But the fact of the matter is, unless you change and evolve and iterate on your design to get to what your business needs, then you will be left behind. This is an example of Craigslist. And this is an example somebody put together, I think, at TechCrunch Disrupt, of all the startups trying to disrupt Craigslist. Craigslist is being disrupted because of two things. It has an enormous market potential, and it has an enormous market potential that is under-leveraged. And that's why all these companies are tackling Craigslist business. The beautiful thing about this is that Craigslist's original theme for its business, original thesis for its business, that if you can create a very low barrier, low cost option to classifieds, that you can disrupt the world. And they certainly have, and they've done a great job. But unfortunately, they haven't really innovated beyond that. The internet that we know today is vastly different, not because just the technology has changed, but because how we use the internet has changed. If you think about it, let's say go back to 1999, the idea that you would post what you had for breakfast on Twitter, or post a picture of your baby taking a dump in his or her diapers to all your friends, seems absurd. I can just use the internet to go buy things. I can just go use the internet to look up stuff. The transactional internet was what was really 1.0. And today, we use the internet to create culture. That's why companies like Cheezburger exist, because it is not about the utility of Cheezburger. It is the fact that we stand for something, that we are a place and not a tool or utility. And so when people look at Craigslist, what you're witnessing is what I would call loss aversion. Well-known psychological theory that says we are much more likely to avoid losing things rather than gaining them. This is the core fundamental resistance to change. This is the core fundamental behavior that people exhibit when they don't want to change the design of the website. Because it's hard, because you are being told by people that this is good enough. And when people say it works, don't mess with it, what I'm actually hearing is, I don't want to work at a startup. If it's good enough, don't mess with it. Great. Why are you here? If the world's good enough, we're all alive, we all have decent jobs, let's not mess with it. But all of you are here because in one way, shape, or form, you want to make an impact on the world because it isn't good enough, that you want to make it a little bit different and put your little thumbprint on the world. What I really want to hear is, yeah, it works. Let's figure out why it works. Why does that design work? Why does Craigslist work? Why did Facebook work? Even though it looked like a piece of crap back then. What was it that drove the business? And if you look at 37 Signals, they've actually done a beautiful job of explaining their redesign process. They talked about taking the landing page that they had, doing a different variation of it to see a 37% increase in design, in conversions. And they did another one, which was 100% better. How many of you have businesses that if you were 100% better, you'd be profitable? Right? So many of your business could be entirely revolutionized by the fact that you could have a different landing page. Yet we are averse to the idea that we will take this risk, even though you're willing to take risks in your personal life and your business. This is a more valid thesis. This is a more valid test. Because what they're doing is they're radically changing the scope of their business and their landing page. What they're doing is they're testing for a global maximum instead of a global minimum. So the difference between the two is, if I went in there and changed that button from blue to red, that is a minimus test, a small tweak to a large picture. What 37 Signals did that was really amazing was they did a huge change. They did a disruptive change upon themselves and said, yes, we have a business that works just fine on high-rise with this landing page, but we're going to blow it out. We're going to make it so radically different. And it turns out it worked. So how do you measure this thesis? If you have this idea that if I could change the experience and the messaging and the user experience and the feel of my sites, that my business could be that much better, how do you test that? First, you are looking for the correct desired outcome. The correct desired outcome of your new design isn't the warm and fuzzies you feel. It is the landing page conversion. It is the sign up. It is the share rate. It is the time spent on website. So think about the metric. And then think about who it's for. Are you doing that for yourself, or do you want users to engage more deeply with you? Like whose behavior are you trying to change? Are you trying to change your internal website so that your investors feel better, that they spent more money in your company? Or that you feel better because you feel like a more professional organization? Or are you doing it because your audience wants to accomplish something and not your audience as a monolithic whole but maybe the people who are kicking the tires on your SaaS tool, or maybe you're just trying to target the visitors of your site versus the people who are power users. Think about the audience that you want to impact. And then use the data. You want to use the information that is being collected by metrics and tools, and it'll be overwhelming. And everyone in your company will look at the data and draw a different conclusion. And you don't want to use this data as a weapon. This is using the data as a weapon. When slow internet is unacceptable, this is a pie chart that tells you that slow internet is never acceptable. It looks like data. It's 100% of the time, slow internet is not acceptable. This is data as a weapon. It's just, you're trying to make the argument that you've been always trying to make, and all you're doing is selectively collecting data to say, aha, this is my argument, exactly. You have to collect more data, and you have to use your gut as well as your logic and your detective reasoning to get to the bottom of it. And you will have arguments with your co-founders. You will have arguments with the executives about how to interpret this data. And the only way to answer that question is to get more data. You need to retest. You need to get in there and try to figure out how to actually generate more data, focus down on the question that you really need to answer, and do it again and again and again. Because if you're willing to accept the arguments of the people in your company, then you also need to remove your own biases. And in order to do that, you need to be shown incontrovertible data about the fact that you may be wrong and the other person may be right. And the only way to do that is to keep asking the questions as much as you can without a personal bias. And so what we've built at Cheezburger is we've built a team of people whose job is to get data. They do not work on any other operational part of our business. There's a small team of people whose only job is to provide unbiased data to other people in the company. We have the luxury to do that. We're about almost 100 people in the company. But even in your organization, start thinking about building a company that is driven by the data. Because then that data will inform how you should design your site. That data will inform you what is actually driving the business and not what people believe is driving the business. Because we live in a time today, fortunately, where data is readily available and that data can be used to settle arguments. That we do not have to create a smoke, get in a tent, and smoke some things to divine the will of what our users want us to do. So if you can use that, then use that to drive your design. Use that to drive your experience. Because it's very clear that a lot of us are today saying user experience is great without really understanding what is it about user experience that is driving our business. And that's it for now. Thank you.